individual, but he also has so many accomplishments in his 19 years that I think I could almost write a book about what he has done. So I'll give you just a brief overview of some of the things that Manu has done. Award-winning serial tech entrepreneur and innovator, United Nations Youth Ambassador, early stage tech investor, LinkedIn campus editor, social media personality, TEDx speaker, one of the youngest venture capitalists in the country, probably. He's consulted with Fortune 500 companies on investments in the digital media space. He's also a brand manager for business leaders and public figures like Trevor Booker of the Brooklyn Nets. Manu, I mean, you're 19 years old. I can go on. I think I have another paragraph and another 10 things that I can mention about. Oh, Entrepreneur of the Year award? I mean, are you really 19 years old?
Honestly, though, I'm not. I just turned 20 a month ago. So
Oh!
About that. Yeah.
That's the difference. It was that last year you did all of this stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. This year I'm fresh. I haven't done anything this year. But yeah, thank you for that intro. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
No, man, the pleasure is all ours. And I can't wait to just dive into how in the world you've accomplished so much in such a short amount of time. And I think that's what our audience, our audience, I'd say the average age is probably 24 years old, so close to your age. How have you been able to do so much at just such a young age?
I honestly think the biggest thing for me is just so many things interested me when I was younger. Like I could never pick a career for that reason. Like I just kept having week after week a new interest, a new career, a new occupation that I really wanted. And it made me really want to move faster. It made me not want to be 24, 25, not knowing what I wanted to do. I wanted to know what I wanted to do roughly when I was 13 and 14, when I really started to get into entrepreneurship, when I really just started putting myself out there through debate and speaking. So that was a huge thing for me early on, and just figure out what I want to do. And in the process of trying to do that, I literally did so many things and put myself into so many scenarios to see whether or not I liked it. So, all of the things you listed out earlier, they sound really good, but the biggest thing I think it really has come down to me for is being able to figure out what I'm good at, what I like doing, and what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that's been my journey so far.
So I think that's really, really important, Manu. I mean, and let's walk back. I mean, it's weird. I like to say, let's walk back a couple of decades, but then we're walking back to birth. So yeah. You said around 13 or 14, you got this entrepreneurship bug. And
yeah,
I'm a little bit older than you, as you might be able to tell.
Yep, 25 something, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I'm concerned, and I'd like to go down this with you. This word entrepreneurship, what I see a lot of today, and I know you're a huge Gary Vee fan, as am I, is almost like the word entrepreneur is the sexy part. Like that alone is okay, I'm an entrepreneur, so I've arrived. Do you see that? I mean, what do you see in that space?
I see a lot of it. Yeah. I mean, I see a lot of it. I had a friend who wrote an article that was really cool, and where she described entrepreneurs. So people that really want to be able to just get the title of CEO or co-founder or entrepreneur or president without ever doing any of the work that comes with it, of building an organization, of going and trying to sell something, whether it be a product or a service. So I totally get that. But I think, from a net perspective, I like our generation where entrepreneurship is more appreciated than the previous generation where my parents lived in, where it was almost seen, again, as Gary says, as something that you would do if you didn't have any other option, if you were a loser, quote unquote, right? So I do like that the perception towards entrepreneurship has largely improved during our generation.
Where do you believe that the dividing, if you could say there's a dividing line or between the wantrepreneurs and the entrepreneurs, what's one or two words that summarize that line right there?
I mean, I think there's only one: results. I just think that's the biggest word that differentiates anyone who's done something to someone who wants to do something. It's results. So I think for the biggest thing, yeah, and I was susceptible to this too, right? When I started off, entrepreneurship was super glamorous. I watched the Gary Vee video. It kept me going almost every week. And the reason why is because the way he lived his life was so cool, and you want to live that way, right? So I'm not saying that I was totally immune to this. I mean, for a long time of my life, I think I was also kidding myself into being an entrepreneur, not doing the work that came with it, just trying to brand myself that way. But I think for the last year and a half, I kind of put my head down a bit and really started to try to do things in various spaces and trying to get results in return. And that has helped me be able to not only bolster my personal brand more, but realize that entrepreneurship is not how the media portrays it to be. It's a lot of lonely nights. It's not being able to spend that much time with your family, with your friends. And actually, for the most part, it's also, being misperceived in many cases in your social community, in your family, anything like that about what you're doing.
Yeah, we don't fit in. And
Yeah.
maybe and I've never had a problem with, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. Growing up, I wanted to fit in. And then I realized at some point in time that I might be a little bit different than everybody. And then I became okay with being different. And now I say I'm proud to be different. So that was part of my journey that I went through. And I think most entrepreneurs kind of go through something like these phases that they go through of life. Walk me just through some of your phases. I know you've overcome some obstacles.
Yeah.
But just walk me through some of these phases that you've gone through.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, early on, I had the childhood, as I like to call it, the unstoppable phase, the time of your life between like 5 to 10, where you feel like you can do anything and you're the best kid and like the best person and the world just revolves around you. And so that was definitely a phase where my curiosity went on a whole new level. Like that's where I started to think really creatively. That's where I started to love what I was doing, love myself, love what I was able to do. And that gave me a lot of self-esteem and confidence, along with my parents supporting me, along with my family supporting me, along with my friends supporting me, to go out and do things from 10 to 14. So, things like I did were like Junior Achievement, which is a great program here in Canada to try to get kids to understand entrepreneurship. And I was able to dabble in that, build a business with some other people, and learn a bit about the process that comes with building a business. So I wasn't very good at it. And I honestly didn't play a very big part in that company, but I still got to see it firsthand by the other people around me and how amazing they were at what they did. And I think the next phase after that, honestly, was a phase where I started realizing that I was different, like you did, and I started being a bit more proud about it. So, I mean, I'm not going to claim I was like the most disadvantaged kid or anything. I wasn't. I come from a well-to-do family. I've been very lucky to be able to have an incredible community around me, friends and family. But, I definitely have had times where I've reflected back on myself and maybe not loved myself as much as I should. And one of those key aspects was my speech impediment when I was in grade 7, which was a lisp. And sometimes it comes through as well. It's just, I have a problem saying S's sometimes. And I tried as much as possible to work on it by going to therapy and basically going and talking to my counselor in my old school. And I honestly didn't like that process because I felt that my voice was something given to me by God, given to me by someone. And I could pretty much use it to be able to help people, to be able to motivate people without having to go through any correctional treatment or anything like that. And so the biggest thing that I did, and that was my next phase of my life, is speak out. I became a debater, a professional debater. I literally went into my school, was like, I'm going to do this. My brother is a world champion debater. He's the best person I know when it comes to debate. And he basically really motivated me to get into debate. And in high school, I was on Team Canada. I competed internationally. And that literally gave me so much comfort with my own voice, understanding that I could speak and people are going to listen and people are going to consume what I'm saying. And I've never looked back ever since. So that really gave me anything that I needed in life that comes my way. I know that I love myself. I know that I'm comfortable in my own skin and I can get through it.
So Manu, and your nickname is Swish, correct?
Swish is my nickname. It's my nickname.
All right. I'm going to go by Swish from here on out.
Amazing.
Walk me through that. So you said that you have a speech impediment. You might have a lisp. And you're going to join the debate team.
Yeah.
There's probably quite a few people that would say, okay, that's exactly what I'm not going to do. How did you overcome that limiting belief that most people, and I'm sure people probably even said to you, Manu, are you sure you want to do this? You know, people might make fun of you. How did you overcome that?
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think one is surrounding yourself around the right people, who are able to take your limiting beliefs that you sometimes create for yourself and destroy them. And again, the biggest person in my life has always been my brother, along with my mother and father. I mean, my brother has done so much in his life, and he's been so incredible at whatever he does, that when he did so well at debate, he helped me, he groomed me, he mentored me, he helped me out whenever I needed help on preparing the case or practicing a speech. That really, really helped. And I think surrounding yourself around people like that is really important to be able to overcome anything. But I think the second thing, honestly, is, and I think this falls into what Gary Vee really talks about now a lot, right? Which is regret. And it's honestly something that I've had in the past. I'm not going to say I've lived a life without regrets. I wish, though maybe what I really do wish is that my next 20 years, I live it without any regrets. But, for the last few years, I realized that regret is quite a poison. It does hurt when you look back and you think that I could have probably done something there. Maybe I could have done something better, or I could have asked that person, or I could have joined that club and be part of it. Right. And I still to date remember the first day that I joined debate in grade 7 at Calgary Science School. And I remember that meeting because I always look back and think that, hey, if I hadn't gone to that meeting and never even got started, I wouldn't have ever been able to debate. I wouldn't have ever been able to meet the coolest people who were on my team, not only in school, but on the national team. And I just don't know if I would have ever spoken out and tried to put myself out there to the same degree if I hadn't just gone into that classroom after school. And I just always look back at that moment to think that if you can do that, you can do anything now. So I'm very happy to be able to be comfortable in where I am right now.
That's an amazing. I think there were so many golden nuggets of information in what you just said. Step out of your comfort zone, surround yourself with the right people, remove your limiting beliefs. And everyone wants, there's so many people that want to know like the secret sauce to life. Like you just gave them about 3. And if I were to interview the top 100 CEOs in this country, I bet I'd hear some very, very similar things from those people. So those are the secrets. Like those are part of the secrets. You do all of this and you're still in school though, right?
I am. So I'm at the University of Toronto, in Toronto, Canada. Woo, go Canadians. Sorry, not go. Oh my God. Sorry. I clearly am not in school. My God. But no, I'm at the University of Toronto. I just finished my second year off. And so my thoughts on education are not as extreme as other entrepreneurs, as other people who are in the field. For me, quite honestly, I think entrepreneurship can be supplemented by education. I think there's a lot wrong in education. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a broken system. I agree with that. I think there's a lot of shortcomings. But at the same time, honestly, because really, I think that for the most part, I do agree that education is meant to put people into the workforce and not as much to try to train people to provide jobs as opposed to take one. And I also think that education does a fairly bad job of trying to really teach people how to love learning, which is something that I think you absolutely need to have, right? In any business, in any craft, in any art, you need to be able to love what you're doing and have that desire and hunger to continue to learn. But the problem here is I have friends, and I do this myself, where I read something, I close the textbook, I never look at that textbook again. I have no innate desire to go after that piece of knowledge because all I need to know it for is a test, and after that test I forget what happens, right? Like I think Tony Robbins says this really well, which is like you only retain 10% of knowledge if you just sit and learn something as opposed to taking that knowledge and actually applying it in the real world. And that's the disconnect that education just can't fix right now. And I hope it gets better, because the reason why I actually do like education is because I think the people you meet in universities and colleges and high school is incredible. You're meeting incredibly intellectual people. You're meeting people who are creative. You're meeting incredible professors who have such a great backstory and experience to be able to inform you what they did right and what they did wrong. And along with that, you really find out more about yourself. If you want to develop personally, I think university is an incredible environment to be in because it's a controlled environment. You're not exactly in the real world yet, but you're also in a very inclusive community for a large part, at least from what I've seen at the University of Toronto, that really wants to be able to hear from you and allow you to be able to engage in various activities on campus. So it's a great way to be able to find out who you are and what you like doing, and more importantly, where you're likely to go in the future.
I think, because I go back and forth. I have three awesome kids, and I can go to one extreme where and I can say how a college education is not necessary. But then Brenton Hess, who's been on the show, very, very close friend of mine. I learn a ton from him. He's your age, but I learn a ton from him. He said something one time that I thought was very, very insightful, and that if you look at your time at a university and how can I get the most out of it, like it's almost like I have a plan. It's intentional. Like, what clubs can I get involved with because I have an interest in something to see? You have a plan for it. And I thought about that, and I was like, now that actually makes sense, because you can build business relationships. You can build all types of different things if you're intentional. But if you're a jellyfish through college, I'm going here to get my degree because that's the solution, then I tend to believe you may have a problem with that.
Yep. And I mean, that's the biggest lie in the world, right? In my opinion, is that just by having a degree, you're guaranteed success. That's like literally the bottom line for success, and many people actually don't even need a degree in order to be able to attain it. One of my good friends who I recently was able to connect with on video is Caleb Maddox. He's a great kid, 15 years old, incredibly inspirational. And one of the things he told me is he plans not to go to college because of the fact that he has the network, the mindset, the business, and the focus to be able to do whatever he wants. And those are 4 things that you would normally learn in university, but he's ahead of the curve there. And that's why he doesn't want to go to college. And I think that's fine. I don't think college is for everyone. I think if you feel comfortable with what you're doing, if you're willing to be like, look, I'm going to take the year or the 2 years in the future off, try to do this incredible thing that I think I can do right now only, go for it. Because I think college, honestly, is a great backup then for those types of people. You can always go back to college. You can always go and attend a class later on. But you might not have that incredible opportunity in front of you at 19, 20, 21 to be able to do something that you really, really love. Because, again, this is a time where we don't have a mortgage. We don't normally have a family. I mean, like a wife or a husband or anything like that. And, we have very little responsibilities, as much as we'd like to say we have a lot. We have very little of responsibilities compared to the people who are 30, 40, 50.
Yeah. And from my standpoint, and I was growing up, I was always a hustler. So I recycled newspapers. I recycled cans. I would look for odd jobs. I don't know if they have them anymore, but they had, when I was a kid, they had something called a work permit and I think I had to be 14 and a half years old, and I could get a work permit that would allow me to work so many hours per week.
Right.
I always wanted to do something, but I think the real bug hit me in my late 20s. I had taken a corporate job after I graduated from college, and I realized through that, and I don't discount that experience either. It was probably one of the most valuable experiences I ever had, was working for a Fortune 50 company at that time. But it hit me around 28, 29, and it was much more difficult because I had a house. But what I didn't have any kids yet. And what I realized that for me, if I was at that next level and I had children, I might not be able to make that switch at that point in time. So I think it gets progressively more difficult the older we get. Doesn't mean it's too late, but it just becomes more difficult.
Definitely. Yeah, no, but again, you're right. It's never too late. I think, honestly, one of the things I love is this whole notion of a side hustle. And I love this idea, right? Like, even if you have a full-time job, maybe spending right after you come back home, 7, 8 o'clock, spend the next 3 hours trying to build an e-commerce store online, or have a side hustle that's writing a book or anything like that. I love that idea. And I think anyone can do that, really. So, if you have a full-time job, if you have responsibilities, I feel for that. But I do think that anyone can have a side hustle if you truly are passionate about that field and what you're trying to do with it.
I think you just hit the one of the most important words is that passion. Like, what are you passionate about that may start as a hobby, but because you're passionate about it, you then turn it into something that becomes monetized, and that side hustle now becomes a vocation, your business, whatever you want to call it. And that's the part about entrepreneurship I love, because you can have a side hustle about selling Nerf guns if you want to. You can
I would buy a Nerf gun. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities right now, but it still takes that work. Like, and I can imagine with you right now, like, how do you, like, what does your day look like? Like, I'm just curious, how do you get so much done in a day?
Yeah, I mean, so right now, actually, this is a very relaxing time. I'm currently in Calgary right now. And the best thing about Calgary, I'm not going to hate on the city. I'm sorry. I make fun of it so much in Toronto. I feel people here now know about it. But honestly, there's not that much to do in Calgary. So the best thing you can do is just work. It's an incredible environment to be in. But at the same time, I think this is what I love doing, is just making myself busy, but more importantly, trying to focus more on being productive than busy, right? I think there's a difference between the two. So as much as possible, if I can quickly text someone as opposed to getting on a call with them, I'll do that. If I can call someone instead of sending an email and waiting for them to reply, I'll do that. Just looking for that corners where I'm able to scrape off time and focus on things that are truly important for me. That's what I love doing. So every week I try to prioritize 3 to 4 things. I set out a weekly schedule. I normally never actually go according to it, but I try to mix it up so that every day is fresh, every day is new. It's not just work 24/7 for me. I don't do that. I can't do that. I really can't do that. I think Gary Vee is like an exception to this because of the fact that he works so hard every single minute and he can do him. I just can't do that. And I don't think that's going to make me behind him. I think I'll be able to get up hopefully one day, knock on wood, to where he is. Of course, when he owns the Jets and is a billionaire or whatever. But at the same time, I think the biggest thing is I figured out what works for me. And I've tried to construct a schedule around that. I've really tried to put myself in a situation where I have incredible people working for me now in each organization, people I can trust, people I can rely on to get things done. And it really frees up time for me then to be able to do more of the higher level branding that I really want to be able to do for not only myself, but the businesses I own. So that's probably the biggest thing I have there. But the one thing, quickly, just going back one thing, you said something about passion. And the one thing I really want to tell people out there, because I think this is really important for every listener, is passion is not static. I think there's two misconceptions in passion. One is that you have only one and it will remain for the rest of your life, right? Like, I was telling you about how I was interested about every virtual thing that came my way when I was younger, right? And I'm kind of the same now. My passions change all the time. I have to prioritize them, definitely. But your passion is not just simply one thing that's going to stay the same for the rest of your life. And I think the second thing is, there's this like weird rush among university students to go out and try to find their passion as soon as possible because your career counselor or your teacher or your mother is like, go find your passion. It's the best way to make money. But I think the biggest thing, honestly, is as much as possible to try many things out. One of the ways I was honestly able to find my passion is by doing something I hated. I interned at a law firm 2 years ago. It was an incredible place, incredible people. Don't get me wrong. I do love that place, but the work was just not for me. Like, I came back home feeling tired, not motivated to get up the next day. And I knew that thing was just not cut out for me. And so that helped me, A, check off one thing that I was definitely not going to do. And B, every time my mind started to drift away to something else, I recorded it. I tried as much as possible to track where my mind was going when I was doing things I hated. And normally they were in the realm of going back home and working on my business, or going back home and making that extra call to my co-founder to talk about what we're going to do the next week, right? And I feel like that's one way of being able to kind of shortlist what your passions truly are, not your passion, your passions.
I love what you just said. Like, love what you just said, because last week, and I'm pretty hard on people about this, that this whole thing about find your why and find your purpose. I'm concerned that there's so many people that are out there that are like, okay, I'm not going to do anything until I find what that is. And last week I was like, go do something, do anything. And I think I even said, go work at Walmart, because maybe you find out that you hate that, but do something to stay in motion.
Yep.
And I don't remember I don't remember physics. I think it was physics. So an object in motion stays in motion, or Newton's law of something, but you probably
something like that. Something like that. Don't worry.
Like we don't think our way there. We go out and do things. But to some people, I get in this argument all the time with my wife because I want to try so many different things. It looks like I'm going this way, then I'm going this way, then I'm going this way, then I'm going this way. And there's some truth to that. I go down bunny trails. But the more that I experience and the more that I try and the more that I fail, the closer I get to finding what truly makes me happy and what truly provides that level of inner peace. I feel almost like at one with everything that's around me. And I keep a list of things that I don't want to do. I hate doing this. Okay, don't do that. And I think that helps.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, even within entrepreneurship, by the way, though I say entrepreneurship is a passion of mine, there's a lot of things within that I hate doing, like printing off documents or having to give a fillable PDF. My God, it's just so time exhausting. It's a waste of time in my mind. I don't want to do it, but you got to do it sometimes. Right. So I think there's a balance there. I think, doing things that you hate, try to stay away from that. But sometimes you'll find that within your passion to get to that big fruit at the end of the road, you kind of have to go through some hard work and patience there, right? I think one of the other things which is really interesting, there's a great Netflix show called Abstract. And the best thing about the show is it profiles artists. And if you're an entrepreneur watching that, I guarantee you'll see overlaps between how artists think and how an entrepreneur would think. An artist comes looking at a blank canvas and doesn't know where to start, doesn't know what they want to make. They have some idea what they're going to use to get there, but they have to work their way through. And the reason why they show up to their desk every single day is because they're waiting for a miracle to happen, where the dots connect, quite figuratively, the dots connect, and they're able to make something out of nothing, right? I think we think like an artist. I think entrepreneurs and artists are quite similar in that way. And I think artists also try to find inspiration in the most unusual ways possible, right? They're not just concentrating on their work. They're doing a lot of things to let their mind free and let their mind go to wherever it needs to and wherever their true heart is set. And I think that's beautiful. So I would definitely recommend that show, Abstract.
Wow. I have this thing where I believe that someone's why or their purpose is almost like, imagine you have a brown paper bag, and inside this brown paper bag, you've got hundreds or thousands of pieces to a puzzle. And when you dump that out, you have no idea. And this is in a brown paper bag, so you don't know what the picture is. You can't cheat off the front of the box like a regular puzzle. So you have no idea what this picture looks like. It's not until you connect enough of those dots that it starts to become more clear. Oh, it looks like it could be a cat. Then you add another couple pieces. Every experience and every failure that I go through, every interaction, hopefully the idea behind this podcast is that you, through your story, add a piece to someone else's puzzle. Oh my gosh, what he said resonates with me. And then collectively as a community, we can help people figure out what their puzzle pieces are collectively. But only through action and activities and trying things and failing at them do you get these pieces to the puzzle. Like that's just I think in my warped head.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the biggest thing is, even this interview happening in the first place, right? It happened honestly because I reached out to Brenton. I made a connection with him. I was like, hey man, this is who I am. I want to get my voice out there. And he recommended me to you. And this is how we're here, right? But had I, and so many people I feel are 1 or 2 points away from the tipping point. They're 1 or 2 points away from that tipping point where something magical could happen, but they stop. Either because they're scared of what other people will think about them, or they don't have, in it for them to be able to do anything. They're lazy, or they don't want to move quick enough, or they just feel like, oh, things aren't working. Let's quit and abandon ship, right? I think there are times when you should do that. But I think when it comes to your desires, when it comes to your dreams, I'm just the type of person who couldn't sit back and not go after them.
Yeah, I live in and I'll use a lot of analogies for my wife because I think I've learned so much from my wife. And she says that John's always lived in John's world, like he makes up his own little fantasy world. And there's a lot of truth to that. Like I truly believe that if I put my mind to something, there's no reason that I can't do it. Whether that's right or wrong, I might be wrong, but that's what I believe inside my head. And I think that's the kind of the mindset that you need. And I'm willing to put myself out there. I'm willing because either I'm too stupid or too curious, maybe. I'm just not willing to accept not trying.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I love that.
I have no idea what I'm doing with this podcast. Like we're going to fail miserably on this thing. It might not be until the 1,000th episode that we have it somewhat figured out. And even then we won't have it figured out. But I'm just willing to go out here and try because I'm going to learn something every time I do this. And that's going to make me better.
Yeah. And isn't it going to be beautiful when you get to like episode 928 and, things start really, really, really popping and you're able to look back at episode 11 and be like, oh yeah, remember this conversation with Switch? But I'm telling you, that's why I love documenting everything. Like I love the idea of writing, of videoing, of doing anything that's down your medium just to record how things are going at a particular time in your journey. Because I think it's beautiful. Even if you fail, you can look back at it with your kids, your loved ones around you and say, hey, this is how I did it. This is where things might have gone wrong. This is what you should probably not do. Or if it works out, great. It's probably the best piece of advice you could give is your journey itself. And I think that can only happen when you start truly taking a look at yourself and really trying to love the aspects of your life that you think other people could learn from, and then start putting that out in audio, written, visual form. So I just love what you just said. That's fantastic.
And you know what the funny thing is today, Manu? Like I have these things. They're little spiral notebooks, and I probably have 20 or 30 of them. And it's so much easier today. Like, 10 years ago, we didn't have the technology we have. But when I look back on what some of my thoughts were 10 years ago, it's mesmerizing to go back and say, what in the heck was I thinking back then? Like, I was thinking too small. Usually that's what I'm thinking. Boy, I really didn't know a whole lot back then. And 10 years from now, I'm going to go back and say the same thing, how small I was actually thinking. And it's interesting, the more people that I meet. Last week, we had a chance to spend some time with very, 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 very successful and affluent Mexican businessman. And I realized, and I thought I was a big thinker, but in spending 2 days with him, I realized how small I actually think. So most people that meet me were like, wow, he thinks big. I met this guy and I'm like, wow, like I'm an infant thinking on a global level, and I'm thinking at a national level. And it goes back to what you said, surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I think there's no reason not to try. I think there's no reason also to try to jinx yourself throughout, right? So many people within entrepreneurship, or for that matter, I think so many people who are trying to go after this big goal. The number one example I like to bring up are actors that are going down to LA to get signed. I mean, I think there's so many of them that, again, are like 2-3 auditions away from getting a part, but they quit, And it just scares me a bit to be able to think that if you had one shot at this thing we call life, you are alive, you're a human being, you have this luxury of being able to think, to be able to process information, to be able to speak sometimes, to be able to put out content, and you're not going after it. That just doesn't seem right to me. And I think the second thing also is, a lot of people ask me, like, what motivates me, what keeps me going. I think really the simple answer to that is I really do fear an alternative world. I fear another world where Manu Goswami is currently doing this interview, but has nothing that he's looking forward to the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year. A world where I'm not motivated to do anything scares the crap out of me. And some people say don't play on your fears, but I've tried to make that fear a huge strength of mine. because I'm running away as much as possible from that person that society is telling me to be, the person who stays within the boxes and gets their education and goes into that job and just lives that life, as opposed to living the life that I want to live. And that's not, any disrespect to the people who want to live within the box, who want to live and have a job like that in a comfortable family. I'm down for that. But that's just not the life that I want for myself. And that's why I'm going after it.
And I think what I heard you just say is, and I had a meeting today, and we're all on the same journey of life. You may have a different path that you take, but we all are kind of here on the same journey. And I call it the journey towards fulfillment. That's just my take on it. Not everyone is meant to be you or me, and I don't judge myself by other people. I judge myself by myself. But at the same time, if you're clear on who you are, I'm okay with that. If someone says, I'm very, very clear on who I am, I want to make $30,000 a year, I don't judge that. I think that's a win. If you're clear on who you are, what you want to do, what brings you fulfillment, to me, that's the greatest. They're the wealthiest people on earth, in my mind. It's not about the dollar signs. It's about, I know what I'm here for. I have a very, very high level of self-awareness, and I'm very, very clear on what I'm doing. And I think that's where some people get trapped. They have a mirage of, it's almost like they're chasing the horizon. The horizon doesn't really exist. We can see it, but it doesn't exist. They're not clear about who they really are and what they really want to do.
Yep. Agree. I think there is actually a difference between success and fulfillment, right? I think those are sometimes two different things. And what I mean by that is, I think sometimes we construct this view of what success looks like that's not aligned with what would actually make us happy, right? A bunch of CEOs in the United States are depressed, right? There's a lot of statistics and data out there to show that the top CEOs, a lot of them are depressed. And there's a reason for that. They have money. They have everything that the average person in the United States would think is the barometer for a happy life. But there's a reason why they're depressed, and that's probably to do with fulfillment, the work that they're doing, or their family not being able to devote that much time to it, not taking and making a life that's truly happy for them, right? And I think that's the difference here. So I love what you're saying. And I think I was on a conversation just about like an hour ago where a guy told me a Tony Robbins quote that I love now, which is, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure, right? That's so cool. And that makes sense to me. It's a really cool quote that I like.
Yeah. And matter of fact, I have that quote on my screen as well. I'm a Tony Robbins fan. And I think I think he talked about the number of CEOs that are miserable. And we see it in other areas. We see it. Look at the actors or actresses or professional athletes that tend to self-destruct, but from the outside looking in, they have it all figured out, but they actually may be missing the one thing that makes all the difference in the world. And I get caught up sometimes, people say money can't buy happiness. And I think Tony has said jokingly, like, yeah, but it sure can put you there in style. And I don't know what the truth is, and I don't really care, because I know what John's truth is, and that's what I'm here for. And I hear a lot of that in you. Like, I hear a lot of, like, I think you seem to be very, very aware of who you are and very clear on that. Is that something that you've always had, or?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, no. Like, and here's the thing. I definitely come off, I think, sometimes as a person who has it all figured out. But I also have things that I haven't figured out, right? Like, there are things that I haven't explored to that great depth or anything. I don't think I've seen the world yet that I can speak on that. But I think like you said, I think I know what I like, what I don't like. I'm very clear on that, in the sense of, from anything from food to chores to the people that I like associating myself to, I have that figured out. And I think that makes me more comfortable than anything, right? It's going out and being able to understand that, look, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. It makes me very comfortable because of the fact that now I can live my life without that tension of having to, like, always think back and be like, who am I? What am I here to do? Those questions always bother me. And there's some people, honestly, who are 30, who are 40, who haven't figured them out yet. And for those people, honestly, I don't think you should even rush it. For me, I think I figured out what I wanted to do early because I put myself in every door possible. I literally went into every single room and tried to immerse myself within that environment. But for a lot of people who've gone through university, who've gotten that desk job, who've stayed there and still don't feel content, I would tell you to please, as much as possible, try as much as possible even now. Because again, the school of life is always open. And I do actually believe that. And that's something you would learn in school because of the fact that once you're done university, everyone just thinks that learning is over, except for in your industry, right? But that's why I love the people who read so much, is because they're always reading not only about their industry, but about the most crazy things in the world because they want their mind to continue moving. And that's great.
Yeah, I almost think that when we stop learning, we basically start dying. Like our body starts to just start to say, okay, well, if there's nothing more, then we might as well just start shutting down. I think every day, every person that I meet, I can learn something from. And I'm very, very conscious about that, to try and come from a position of understanding, not judging, because everybody here on this earth, and this is just my beliefs, was here for a reason, and they were designed in a perfect manner by God. And once again, this is me. So there's something that I can take away from every single individual, no matter what their status is, what their role is. And I try and be very, I try and put myself in a position where I'm very open to hearing what other people say.
Yeah. And I love what you just said because, I brought up reading, but I think that a lot of people don't know that there's a lot of ways you can learn, right? Going out and simply just talking to people is a great way to learn. Not everyone's a reader. Not everyone likes watching videos all the time, anything like that. Just find your medium, find what will allow you to pick on the minds of other people and just consume knowledge, And that's why a lot of times I think people get it wrong about mentors, right? Mentors aren't the people as much who, are going to give you great advice and they're particularly within this industry and they're well connected. The ideal mentor, the perfect mentor, is the person who's done something that you want to do. And that's why I think a lot of people, they just simply get someone who's in that older industry, call them a mentor, done. I already have my mentor, I'm set. But, I literally look at mentors like I want to live their life. Like if I could live that person's life, I would. And there are probably very few people in my life that I currently know that I'd want to do that for. And those are my mentors.
So, I got to ask this question now, like, if you don't mind sharing, who would a couple of those people be?
Yeah. So, there's two right now. The first is a guy called Michael Hyatt, he's an incredible person. He recently just sold his company about 2 months ago for $400 million. Incredible person. And what I mean by that is he did a bioscience degree for undergrad, then went into business with his brother, right? A lot of people say don't do family, like business with family. He decided to start a business with his brother, continued it on, started speaking, went on Dragon's Den as a judge, which is like the equivalent of Shark Tank in the United States. Yeah, it's a Canadian equivalent. And, the best thing about him is he's very approachable. And I love that. When you look at him, he doesn't have all the money in the world. He's quite rich now, but he is a happy person. I went on a walk with him once where he took me to literally every secondhand store on that street. And the biggest thing he was trying to teach me is to live a minimal life, but think maximally, right? To think as big as you want, but to live as minimal as possible. And that worked for him. I think that's something that probably will work for me. I'm not a type of person who's going to be like watches and cars and stuff like that. That's just not really into like what I really like. But I think he's an incredible influence when it comes to just my mindset and how I think and how I operate every day. And of course, the second is all our favorites, right? Gary Vaynerchuk, the man, the myth, the legend. I got to meet him last year in August. And then I got to meet him again in Niagara at a conference. I got to surprise him in the car. He was sitting down. There's a great video of it online. And I think the biggest thing I've learned from him more than anything is as much as possible to just simply realize that you have one shot at life and you got to make the most out of it. A lot of people take away different things out of his narrative. That's just struck a chord in my heart. And it's really helped me to continue moving forward, to understand that, the biggest thing that you're privileged with is this life, and you can make the most out of it. And when you realize that everything in this world around you, like Steve Jobs says, is created by people no smarter than you, that's the most empowering feeling you could have, because you can go out and change it, you can mold it, you can perfect it, you can make it your way, and you can build things. And that's incredible. So I love that.
And that is exactly what the individual last week said to me. He looked at me dead in the eyes, and he's probably in his early to mid 70s, said, "Do you know the only difference between you and me is a couple of zeros?" He said, because once you learn how to build a business to this level, it's really just a larger process, but it's not that much more complicated to build it to another level. He said, so I just play bigger hands. I make bigger bets. I just do things with a couple of extra zeros. And I was like, whoa. Like, it opened my mind to, wow, I am thinking small, because if I add 2 zeros, and Grant Cardone, 10X it, your goals, it's one thing to hear it, but then to sit with someone and say, they look at you and say, oh no, it's that simple. Like, oh, okay. It is that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And, listen, I think not everyone's destined to have the $1 million startup, the $1 billion startup. Not everyone's destined for that. I think everyone, though, is destined to be able to be fulfilled. And that, again, goes back to what we were saying, right? Chase fulfillment, not success. And I love that.
Yeah, it's, and that itself can be somewhat, even, it's not something that, it's not like a destination that I think you arrive at. This is just my personal belief. After the show last week, someone asked me if I'd watched the show yet, and I said no. And they said, you should watch it. You might learn a lot about yourself. And I'm thinking, I think I'm pretty clear. Part of me is saying, I think I'm pretty clear about myself. But and then I watched it, and I tried to really, really listen, and I'm like, wow. Like, almost to the point where it was, I really am still on this journey. I don't have it all figured out. Like, it is the journey. It is, and that's why you can't stop, because for me, if I believe that it's this journey, I can never quit. I can't stop learning. I can't stop doing. I can't stop trying, because it never ends. The journey doesn't end. It just keeps going until the day that I'm no longer able to do that anymore.
And yeah, you're right. The journey continues whether you like it or not. Are you going to continue to play, or are you going to fold? Right. So I love that. No, that's very important. And I think one of the things too, and this is, again, the conversation I had an hour ago, incredible guy, Tim Denning from Australia, great guy, but he was telling me something, which is, the problem is a lot of young entrepreneurs in high school and university, and I also was a person who, I can admit now, fell into this trap when I was younger. You think it's all about you, you think it's all about you, your startup, your idea, your life, it's all about you. But I think at the point where you make that shift in your mind to realize that it's more about other people, it's more about how you can help other people, how you can provide value, that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I could ever give to a young person my age, is just to try as much as possible to help other people out. And it doesn't mean, starting a business that's going to save the world. It means the small things as well, like checking in with people who you've connected with to ask them what you can help them on, to connect people to each other. Those are the simple things that go a long way.
I think that is huge. I love what you just said. And most of the people that are in my inner circle, and I don't think I do enough of it, which is weird, but they would say that, I'm always trying to help somebody else out. But I don't, I get mad when people say, John does so much. Like, I don't want that credit. Like, it's just, but I know today that the more I give, the more that comes back to me. Like, that's not just like some old adage. I know factually that I can look at the results and things that have happened in my life, and the more that I give of myself, the more that comes back to me, as long as I'm doing it for the right, like I'm not doing it because I want something to come back. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. And then the world of abundance just starts to open up.
I agree. No, I love that. And the problem that I have with things like that, honestly, is that they've become considered to be adages or cliches. But they're so true. They're so true, you know? Like, karma's real, people. No, I'm kidding. But like, you know, there's so many things out there that are just put into a quote form. And like a lot of my friends who aren't entrepreneurs, who aren't creators or anything, they'll laugh it off, you know? They'll make fun of it. And that's fine. But sometimes it gets a bit under my skin because a lot of times I feel like these cliches, they're quite true. You know, they become a cliche for a reason. And sometimes it's because if you actually look back at your life and see how the dots are lining up, like I do this all the time. It's actually my favorite pastime, is to see how some of my childhood experiences, some of the stupid things I did all added up to where I am now. You'll see that some of those cliches are actually quite true.
You mentioned it very, very early on. And Steve Jobs said it, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. But you said it early on, if you didn't go to that room that one day for the debate team, where would you be? Like, how would you?
I wouldn't be here. I honestly would not be here. And that's why I credit that experience. I credit debate to be like one of the biggest experiences in my life that really changed my life, you know. And a lot of debaters, especially within the debate community globally, will give credit to debate for opening their eyes, for giving them the ability to process information and actually think on their feet and then speak. And it's been a huge influence, I know, for me. I know it's been a huge influence for some of my debate friends. So that's another thing. Whenever I go to schools and speak, you know, I tell people like, where's the debate teacher? And if they don't have one, I'm like, someone appoint yourself as a debate teacher tonight, start the club tomorrow, and let's get started, you know, because I really think debate is an incredible skill to learn. Even if you're not a fan of public speaking, it teaches you to think. It teaches you to take issues, to dissect them, and to properly add your own intuition to it. And that's just incredible.
And I love that. I love a good debate. I'm not going to debate against you because but I love everything for me is almost like a debate. I'm always trying to think, which is what you said. Okay, is that real, or is that an opinion, or why does that have to be true? Like, I want to second guess. Now, sometimes that can lead to, for myself, what I found, it was very, very difficult for me when I got into business to follow a model because I wanted to do it better. I always wanted to create the better mousetrap instead of saying, well, let me first perfect the one that's already been done and then add my layers of creativity to it. So sometimes it's caught me. Today, I'm wiser, and I realize that if someone else has what I want, let me first follow them. And then when I get to their level, then I'll start to question if they had it figured out the right way or the wrong way. I'm just a big believer in models now.
That's great. No, I love that. And I mean, the second thing also, I think, is just to note that, you know, when you are trying to process information, when you're trying to dissect it, and by the way, this is not even within entrepreneurship, it's in anything, you know, like we have a politician's problem everywhere in the world right now, and that problem isn't going away. So whenever someone tells you something, sure, second guess it. But I think the biggest thing that people can do as a service to them is to create a framework that they believe in, you know, and this encompasses your values, it encompasses your beliefs, it encompasses your interests, and it encompasses the people around you. And the best thing in life when it comes to building a personal brand is to take that framework and put it out and share it. And that's why I think that every foundation of a personal brand, like I was in a lecture where, you know, the question of what a personal brand is came up. And man, like the three other people are beside me who were a bit older were all like going into the intricate details, and we're like, personal brand is like a digital footprint, which is like on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm like, all right, yeah, cool. And then they got to me and I'm just like, a personal brand is a combination of your values, beliefs, and interests. And you put it out there. And this notion of personal branding is not new. People have been doing it ever since they started off, right? Ever since civilization existed, we've been trying to differentiate ourselves and find roles. And that has been a personal brand. Just because we have a digital age now, just because we have phones, doesn't mean personal branding is a new concept altogether.
I think that was extremely powerful. And what I find, where I think people somewhat, and I'm no expert at this, this is just my belief, they forget who they are, and they're trying to be some sort of brand that they think the marketplace wants to see. Instead of just showing you who I am, being completely transparent and vulnerable, I try and create this facade of I want to be somebody else, which just comes across as being phony. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. And that goes back to the entrepreneur thing we talked about, right? So many people that want the title, they want that personal brand, but they don't actually have anything behind it, right? So my dad, I had a conversation with him when I went to Singapore 2 weeks ago, and he's like, Manu, you've reached the age where, by the way, age 20, sure, whatever. I was like, Dad, come on, man, you're making me sound like I'm old. But it's like you've reached the age, Manu, where you've been able to build a great personal brand for yourself, but the next few years and your success is going to be conditional upon content. Do you actually have the content to be able to support that? And I love that. I've done a lot of experiences. I feel proud about it, but now it's the time for me to master one or two things that I can really monetize and come out as an expert on. And I hate that word expert because so many people claim to be experts, but they're not. But, at the same time, I think that I really do want to learn how to be able to master one or two things. And I think, now is the age for me to be able to do that. But hey, everyone has their own time. Sometimes you might be 40 and you feel like it's time to be able to master a skill.
It's never too late. If you're true to who you are, you're true to your passions. What you just said kind of fascinates me, because you said that your dad said something about personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact, because I mentor a bunch of young adults, and most of them, their parents would not even know what a personal brand is. Like those two words put together would not come out of their parents. Did your parents always push you in this direction? Were they always supportive of this journey?
Always supportive, 100%. They never really pushed me. Like my dad is an engineer by trades, and I think kind of deep down in his heart he wanted me to be an engineer. But he was so happy when I loved business, when I got into it. And I built my first company, if you will. Like the first project I worked on was with him when I was 9 years old, and we built a hovercraft and sold it. So my parents have been 100% supportive. But again, my parents, more importantly, have been not only supportive of what I wanted to do, but why I wanted to do it, right? They understood that I'm going to find my way through life, that no matter what happens, as long as we're behind him, as long as we're supporting him all the time, he'll figure it out. Because they knew I wasn't stupid. And by stupid, I don't mean intelligence. I mean that I care for myself, that I really do care about my success, and I'll figure it out, right? And I think that's a huge thing that my parents have been able to do for me. So definitely, like, my dad now is in an executive position at an oil and gas company. But the reason why I love entrepreneurship, the reason why I love what I'm doing right now, is because I think my dad deep down has the regret of not starting his own company earlier. And though he's made it, though he got to that executive position finally, things might have taken a turn, right? He also had to go through 2008, where that recession hit, where things didn't go as good as things were planning to. So, I think he wants me to live a life where, as much as possible, I can not only, try to avoid risk, but I think the biggest thing is to embrace it, and to try to live a life that's truly meaningful and something that I can look back and feel happy about.
Wow. And kudos to your parents, because I think that so much credit has to go to parents that are able to do that, because as a parent myself, there's a natural instinct to protect them, to protect
Mm-hmm.
my children, and to do whatever I can. I don't want them to experience pain. And what I know is, in this entrepreneurial journey, there's pain along the way. I mean, it can get, like you said, some dark places, some dark times. And it's hard as a parent to allow your children to go there knowing that they're going to experience some failure, some pain. And just kudos to your parents for that, because I think that is amazing.
Yeah, and I think there's two things there, right? It's one is, if you're a child right now that's watching this, and your parents, they try to push you towards something, or just like, John, you just said, like, they're a bit concerned about what you're doing because it's a bit tricky. I mean, I think the one thing is just to note that deep down, if they really are the person speaking out to you, deep down they care about you, right? The source of that concern is them caring so much about you and loving you and wanting to see you succeed. But I think the second thing, honestly, is, if anything, I think this is a big generational gap problem as well, right? Like, my parents grew up in a time where, this was not a thing, like, social media was not a thing. Facebook freaking Live was not a thing. Like, they don't understand this stuff. And I'm not saying that they're dumb or anything. I'm saying that a lot of parents, I feel, just like when we become parents, don't understand the conditions that we are put into. And that's a generational gap. And we're going to face it as well, right? Us millennials, us Gen Z people who are all sitting on our high horse being like, we're the most evolved generation of all time. We're 20 years down the road, when we're parents too, we're going to realize that, oh crap, we're actually kind of archaic in our thoughts. Like, we're pretty old when it comes to this stuff. And so I think that's going to be a huge wake-up call. But I think for the biggest thing for me is just understanding the source of where your parents are coming from sometimes is a bit different than what you're thinking.
Yeah, and I think it's also, once again, as a parent myself, and this is why I love talking to, whether it's millennials or Generation Z. I jokingly say that I live in multiple dimensions. Like, I live in multiple worlds. I live in my parents' world, and then I have my generation's world, and then I have young adults that I work with that are your age. So I kind of in their world, and I have kids down to 5. So I get to experience their world. And you are right. The gap between 45 and 22 is tremendous. It is so large.
Mm-hmm.
But between you and my 5-year-old did not watch TV for the first 4 years of her life. She would only watch her P-pad. That's what she called her iPad. She would watch Dora on her P-pad. She wanted nothing to do with that television screen. She doesn't know how to make a phone call, but she knows how to use FaceTime. So my 12-year-old kids, they study on their iPads. They have iPads in school, and that's how they do their homework, do things like that. So they're growing up in an environment. But what I'm careful of is not to judge. And I think this is where so many people of my generation and older, I'm careful not to judge those people. Like, we hear all the things about millennials. They don't know how to communicate. They're not hardworking, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, they just communicate differently.
Yeah, true. Bang on. And I think the biggest thing is, I think this also, I wouldn't say the problem is only with people who are older looking down and scrutinizing millennials. I think a lot of what people characterize millennials to be is a bit far-fetched. I also think there's a problem within millennials as well for being too close-minded and not thinking that older people understand what we're going through, right? I think that you guys have a lot of wisdom, a lot of experience that you can give us, And one of the suggestions my mom gave me early on was to enjoy natural life. And when I talked to her about that, she was like, there's a virtual life, there's a natural life, and that's helped me because I was a very outdoor person. I love playing cricket. I love going out and playing basketball. And that really helped me just appreciate nature and what exists out there. Maybe not as much now because I'm mainly indoors now, but that's huge. And I sometimes feel bad for the kids who are living in that age where they don't experience what the natural world has to offer, where they haven't truly gone and hiked up a mountain and breathed the air that's so incredibly refreshing out there, like small little things that I sometimes feel like we should try to embrace and be a bit more open-minded to. So I think it's a two-way street, honestly.
Wow. That was so insightful. And I think, once again, I'm going back to my being a parent. That is always a challenge. It is a challenge as a parent with young children, because so much can be done on these things that we can experience, or the perception is that we can experience so much on these things that we almost forget, like, no, it's okay to have friends. Like, it's okay to go out and actually have like people that you can talk to and play basketball with or do whatever with.
Yeah.
It's not just okay, it's necessary, because we actually need that as humans.
Yeah, it's true. And honestly, I didn't share that opinion largely. If you had asked me a year ago if I'd share that opinion, I would have told you no. I would have been like, I have 3,000 friends on Facebook. What are you talking about? I'm not alone. But I think over the last year, I've really understood like how important having relationships that are super close to you, and having I was a person in high school that was like a social butterfly, if you will. Like I loved going into different groups and like being the person that like would be able to be a good friend to everyone, if you will. But in university was a time where I really realized the importance of having like the one or two people that you can call upon at 4 a.m. and go eat pizza with, or, the people who will be with you no matter what happens. And that's so important. And I think it's really hard to find virtually. You have to go out and try to find it. But hey, I'm glad that a lot of people though, there's a huge debate, right? Is social media making us more lonely, making us better? A lot of people say that there are a lot of apps now that connect people to one another, and that helps us out, right? I don't know. I'm not going to weigh in on this debate because I think it's a very much like a case-by-case basis. My opinion will be different from yours based on my life. But I think largely there needs to still be an emphasis on having relationships that are not just virtual. And I think that's something that I think hopefully everyone can agree on.
You know what, Swish, just from my experience, I don't know if it's actually changed. And here's what I'll tell you. I was in high school, one of the most likely to be seen at a party. I had a lot of friends. I was very, very very much an introvert because I was very, very insecure. And then I went way to the other extreme and wanted to be seen everywhere. So the perception was I had a lot of friends. Almost like today, I can have thousands of Facebook friends. But what I realized was, how many true connections do I have? How many people am I truly connected with? And there's a difference. Now, the cool thing about social media is it allows me to connect with you. Like 15 years ago, I'm not sure how you and I would be able to connect. Maybe we've run into each other at a conference or something, but we truly have the ability to connect with people all over the world. And I find that to be amazing. And this is going to sound crazy. I think it's easier today in business, from a biz dev standpoint, from any aspect. It's easier today because 10 years ago, I couldn't connect with as many people as quickly.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if you're familiar with the All Things Social Media group on Facebook. There was a meetup for that. There's a Facebook group. It's basically called All Things Social Media. A bunch of marketeers, business people, entrepreneurs. You should definitely join it. It would be great. I'll invite you.
All right. Thank you.
It's like 900 people, and they hosted a meetup in LA, and it was hosted by a guy called Justin Wu. Great guy. He's a entrepreneur who does a lot of growth hacking for brands. And I didn't go to the event, but I heard that the minute everyone came, these are people who only virtually connected, the minute they came into that room together, boom, conversation after conversation after conversation, and there was nothing stopping them. But the conversation wasn't, revolving around like, hey, what are you doing? Or what are you doing? Like everyone knew what each other was doing. Like the small talk was gone. Right? Everyone is getting into the nitty gritty things of like, hey, like you do influencer marketing, right? Like, I think I know a really good person that you can like talk to. And that's incredible. I love that. That's crazy.
I had that experience just last week.
Yeah.
Just last week, unfortunately, a friend of mine from high school passed away, and I went to the service and saw a lot of old friends from high school. And I was amazed at how many, and some of these, old friends I hadn't spoken to in years, not even on Facebook. I mean, we just got disconnected. It was amazing how many of them said, hey, they called it a TV show. I watch your TV show. And I'm like, well, what TV show? Like, I didn't know I had a TV show.
Yeah, have a TV show, yeah.
Like, but people are paying attention sometimes when you don't know that they're paying attention. So even though I hadn't seen them in a while, it was like we haven't really lost a whole lot of contact. The connection was still there. And that's I can't tell you how many times I've never physically met somebody, but we develop a connection. And I want to distinguish, there's a difference between a connection and just having a like or a friend, but we've truly connected online. We meet at a conference for the first time, and it's like we've been friends for 10 years.
Best friends for ages. Yeah. No, totally get that.
And
yeah.
it makes
that's so cool. Yeah. It's so cool, and it's so cool. And that's why, I think there's a balance there, right? Like we were saying, there's a balance. And I love the fact that you have a difference between connection and just a person who likes your Facebook page or who connects with you as a friend. But no, I love that. And I think the best way, and this is a key piece of advice that I love giving to people my age, the best way to make a connection is to upfront provide value first, right? So that's why, I'm doing a LinkedIn series right now called Unconventional. I've used that series to be able to connect to the coolest people that are around me, because of the fact that I'm like, hey, I'd love to learn more about your story. And 9 out of 10 people are going to be like, oh, lovely, let's talk, And in the process of talking to them, in the process of having an interview like this, I'm able to find out more about you and you're able to find out more about me, right? So that's incredible. And I love that.
And I think it goes back to jab, 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 right hook. It's not what can I get from somebody, but it's truly how can I come from contribution and impact somebody and add value to their life. And then it's amazing how many people are willing to in turn say, oh, you know what, how can I help you?
Yeah.
What? And I think that's just, go ahead, rant.
Oh no, I was saying, you were telling me earlier, who knows why I'm doing the show? The real ROI of the show, honestly, John, is not going to be the number of people that watch it as much as the people that you've connected to, and I envy you for that. You have a well-developed show here going on, and the amount of people that you're going to be able to get connected to, literally connected to, and learning their story, taking inspiration, offering your own wisdom, which you've been doing greatly off, it's going to be incredible. And that's why, if people my age, if people 19 and 2021 who are trying to do this thing that they call networking, and they try to roadmap it on a freaking whiteboard as if it's the most complex thing in the world, just realize that you're a person, I'm a person, you have interests, I have interests, and let's try to meet those together. That's the most simple way to make a connection. I don't think it's as complex as people make it.
No, it's not. And I would love your input on this. I don't know if that's a learned skill. I actually, I want to believe it is, because I believe that almost everything is a learned behavior. But you're right. We tend to overcomplicate very, 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 very simple things. Hey, Swish, you seem like a cool guy. I'd love to learn more about you. And then we just shut up and listen.
Literally. And the thing about it is, I've realized people love talking about themselves, 9 out of 10 people would be like, yeah, sure, I'm the best. I love talking about myself, and they'll get on a call with you for 10 to 15 minutes. They'll take that coffee chat with you, right? But here's the thing. People either screw it up by A, not asking, B, asking in the worst way possible, which is hey man, can you do this for me? Endorse me on LinkedIn, even though I don't know who the hell you are. Or 3, when they do ask, they never sustain that relationship. So even after this interview, it's not like I'm parting ways with you now. Most definitely not. I'm going to stay connected with you. Hopefully we can figure out something else to do together. Hopefully I'll be able to connect you with someone, or you're able to connect me with someone. That's the best part of the connection, is you've spent so much time building it up. Why are you just putting it to waste after you get what you want, or after something happens where you two are involved in it, So that's just, I totally love that.
And you are so right. I've spoken at universities throughout the state, and usually when I speak, I will very, very, very freely say, listen, I'm online between 10 o'clock and midnight almost every night talking to people. I don't usually give out my cell phone number, but I'll usually give out my Facebook. If you reach out to me, I promise you I will connect back with you. I've even gone and said, listen, ask a million. No. One of the ways that you can find people that have what you want, ask them out to lunch. Hey, I would love to take you out to lunch. I was doing a workshop, and there was about 90, probably about 70 to 80 people there. And I said, listen, anybody wants to go out to lunch. I was speaking at my alma mater, so there's a little bit of a kindred spirit there. And I'm willing to, as long as I'm close by campus, two people hit me up. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
guys, I just gave you like, and I'm nobody. It's not about me, but I just freely, and not only did I paid for the lunch. So not only did they get to ask questions, but I paid for the lunch.
Yeah. You know, my favorite thing to see, quite honestly, in the morning is when you go on someone's Facebook page and you see typically replies in an hour. I'm like, you know, I love that. And there's so many people like that where you go on their Facebook page and you're like, damn, this is the coolest person. Like, oh, I'm really scared. Like, how do I contact them? How do I reach them? Search their name on Google, no contact email or anything. Just go into their message and see if they reply quickly. And you probably will get a response within 24 hours, right? And sometimes, you know, people are busy. Sometimes they'll be like, no, I can't do it. But that doesn't mean you just quit immediately and be like, all right, on to the next person. Like the way I met Gary Vaynerchuk is probably the coolest way possible. I literally just emailed him every single day for a month. I interacted with him on every single social media platform. The first time he ever responded to me was on Instagram, where I commented on one of his videos and he gave me a heart. He didn't even say anything. He gave me a heart. I just like was blushing. I was dying. You know, I was so happy.
Did you screenshot it?
Yeah, I of course screenshot it and told all my friends, you know. He responded. I'm doing this. But that's incredible, you know. And like people will respond. Eventually, if you're persistent about it and if you truly have noble intentions for why you want to connect with them, if you're just trying to learn from them, you're not doing something wrong. You just have to, you know, continuously act upon that person, continuously see what they're doing, see what they need, where they're going to be, and try to reach out to them.
And that's where, you know, you've probably heard the old adage, luck is where preparation meets opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that opportunity, be prepared. If you have the chance that, okay, you know, I reach out to Gary Vee and now we're in a conversation, don't ask them, you know, like be prepared. Like don't ask them a small question. Ask him something that, wow, you know, that's a good, just do your homework. I mean, for God's, I can't tell you the number of people that I will interview for a role and they haven't done their homework. Like, guys, it's all out there this day and age. It's not hard now.
Do
your homework.
Do your homework. And so, I mean, I was at the Niagara conference, Haste and Hustle, about 4 months ago. Gary was speaking there. The first question he gets is from this guy called Pedro, who comes up and is like, I swear to God, I'm not even kidding. He just said this. Can I get an internship, Gary? That's it. And I'm like, dude, you had one question. You could say anything to him. And you went the petty way and just asked him for something off the bat. You know, and he got a really big no. Like, Gary made fun of him the entire Q&A. Like even after that question happened, he was like referencing Pedro on every single question. But yeah, like, you know, like, and then I have another friend, Abby, who got an internship off a question, but didn't preface it as a question. You know, he explained his story. He's like, Gary, I came all the way from New York here. I missed my class and I'm really interested on blank. What are your thoughts on it? And after Gary answered, after he truly took it in, he saw that there was an opportunity to potentially work with Gary. And he said, Gary, can I work for you for free? And he did it, you know? And he didn't just go in for the yes. That's the way you do it, you know? You try to set up some context. You truly try to learn from them. And then if the opportunity presents itself, you're prepared to go in. So preparation, I think, isn't as much just learning who the guy is, but more learning how to adapt and learning how, as much as possible, to respond to what you're being given.
I think what you just said is so freaking powerful. If someone has what you want and they are where you want to be, go work for them for free. And I want to come back to this. Are you okay with taking some questions, Swish?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, Jeff. I don't know if anybody can see Jeff. I can see you, Jeff. Oh, there you are. So Who's out there? What questions do we have?
I don't know. I was waiting for you to let me know. I know that some people are asking. There's a couple of questions coming in via the comments, but yeah, anyone that is looking to talk, call in. I just left the number down in the captions there. So if anyone wants to chat in, it's funny. I wanted to really quickly though bring up that somebody asked. You said like someone asked for an internship with Gary Vee. When we had our event with Gary in last year, I'm pretty sure someone did the same exact thing. And it was
Did
like,
they get it?
I almost felt like he was planting these people to make fun of in the audience. The same way that like someone asked this crazy question about MLMs or whatever. And like, I mean, it was just like ripped them to shreds.
Yeah.
Ripped to shreds. Yeah.
Just be careful when you get that opportunity. And here's where I was going to go while we're waiting for somebody to call in. Is there anybody, Swish, that you would work for free? Because I have multiple people that I would gladly, as long as my wife and kids were okay, I might have to make a little bit of something only because I have kids, but I would take a huge pay cut. Who would that be for you?
There's 3 people. So right now, Elon Musk, definitely Elon Musk, probably the greatest. And who else then? Probably Gary Vaynerchuk. Definitely would love to be able to work for him for free. And the third person has to be Richard Branson. Yeah. Those three are definitely my top 3 there.
Awesome. Yeah, and I have Elon Musk would be up there. Branson would definitely be up there. Mm-hmm. And here's what I equate this to: your perception of value determines who you would work for free. Meaning that there are some people that I would say wouldn't work for them for free. They'd have to pay me $50,000. Mm-hmm. There are some people, and then my perception of value is what would determine, okay, they're on the free level. And as a business owner, as a leader, that's kind of like, I want to be at that level. People will say, okay, yeah, he's somebody I'd work for free. Because the perceived value is so high. Hey, John, can you hear us, John?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. So, John, forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong. Last name Stober?
Yep.
All right. You're on, bud.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good, man.
Fantastic. John, just wanted to say I've been listening to your podcast. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It's because of you all, not me. I'm just John. Man, it swish out there.
Thanks, Ed.
So what do you want to ask, John?
Well, I've actually never used Zoom before, so I don't even know how I got here. Yeah, I'm not very techie at all.
All right, well, don't pick your nose or anything because you're like live right now. So don't do anything crazy.
What I ask you? I don't know. I'm just trying to absorb like everything you guys are saying right now. To be honest, I'm like completely unprepared.
So John, tell us something about yourself. What do you do? Where are you right now?
Yeah, so I graduated from college in December. I'm working at this company called Leidos. Cool. And I'm trying to get into real estate investing right now and working toward financial freedom. I just want to make an impact on the world and live the life I'm envisioning.
Cool. And how'd you find out about this podcast? Like, why do you like John so much?
So I'm in, I guess one of John's like students or colleagues, Brent and Hess, started this group called Reckon. I joined Reckon a few months ago, and I found out about the podcast through that. So I've been listening to it. It's been really great.
It's awesome. It's good. So did you just like click on the Zoom link and you were just like, that's what happens, man?
Yeah, and then my camera came on and I was like, oh, wow, like, how did this happen?
Well, that's legendary.
It's a good thing you weren't doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing.
I have a little light on my
Interesting.
computer and I saw it come on and I was like, oh, like I better be on my best behavior. I don't have any pants on right now, so it's a good thing you guys can't see.
All righty. Yeah, then we'd be taking it to a whole nother level then. That's a different show. All right, John, we have some more questions, bud. Keep tuning in, and thank you. Thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for what you're doing, John.
All right, bud. Peace out. All right. Wow, that would have been fascinating if he was like doing something else.
Yeah.
I knew that he wasn't.
That video would have gone viral.
Yeah, and then Facebook would shut us down.
Literally.
We had a comment, and he's not on, but I'm going to read it to you because I think this is just a very, very deep question, and I think there's a lot to this. The question is, what do you do if your passion and what you love to do, you then turn into a business, but after it becomes a business, you don't enjoy it. Yeah, you don't enjoy it anymore. Like, what would you say to someone? Because I think that happens a lot, actually.
I think there are two things there. I think the first thing is, honestly, you can't blame your passion sometimes for things going wrong and you not liking it anymore. Maybe you just don't like the second part, which was business, Maybe you didn't like taking what you were really interested in and trying to make money off of business, Maybe there's another way that you could make money or try to be able to go into that passion. And that's why I love, one of the things I love is blogging, right? Like this whole advent of blogging and writing about what you're interested in. A lot of people would sometimes consider that a business, but I still don't. I think it's, something you can do for leisurely stuff as well, right? And a lot of people are telling me that, hey, passion, what it really comes down to is the thing that you would love to do even for free. Even if you weren't paid, you would love to do that. So sometimes, honestly, when you make it into a business, you might realize that A, you don't really like business, B, that wasn't your passion, or 3, quite honestly, maybe you just screwed up somewhere. Like maybe, you're doing tasks that are too mundane. You're trying to go and do something else. Like for example, for me, I can't do a lot of the finance related work, right? I have someone else do that. I have an account manager. I have a chief financial officer. I love, however, to do the higher level branding, all of the operational work, getting on the weekly meetings and working with the team. So maybe it's just about orienting yourself a bit differently.
And the other thing I can say, and Nima, thank you for asking that question because you and I had a conversation today. Sometimes when it gets to that level, you could be missing a person. And I think you were saying the same thing, Swish. It could be that I love this aspect of being a plumber. I love doing the plumbing or whatever that's called. But I don't, when I started as a business, I don't like the lead generation, the biz dev side of it. I don't like the paperwork. So it might be you need to bring in another person. And that could bring back the passion. Or it could be, like I always wanted to be a charter boat captain. I wanted to take people fishing. Like that's what I thought I always wanted to do when I was young. And I spoke to someone that was doing in that profession. This is literally how it happened. I spoke to a charter boat captain and he said, do you like to fish or do you like to take people fishing? And I said, well, no, I like to fish. He said, well, let me just explain to you what it takes to run a business around fishing. You have to do this, 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 this. No, I said, nope. He said, so maybe what you want to do is you want to go out and find a vocation, a career, something that provides you with the income so that you can pay me to take you fishing. I said, bing, yeah. That's it. So it made crystal clear. It made sense to me.
Yeah. And I think what that really comes down to is unrealistic expectations, right? In the same way, like you just laid it out, I had a friend who loved painting. She really wanted to sell paintings, but she had unrealistic expectations going in. She was going in being like, I'm going to be a millionaire by the end of the year. I'm going to sell all the shit. Everything's going to be good. There's some industries, there's some passions that aren't $1 million ideas, that aren't $1 billion ideas. And a lot of people I know are super comfortable starting a business around that because they have reasonable expectations for how much they can make off it. And more importantly, how much they can get to until they feel satisfied. But sometimes people just have unrealistic expectations and they're like, shit, that wasn't my passion. I clearly was not a millionaire. That did not work. So I'm like, that's definitely not how you should be thinking about things.
And I think that's where it comes back to Swish is clarity. And for someone to say, I want to be a millionaire, if they can't define, like I see it all the time in my businesses, how much we'll do goal setting, how much money do you want to make? I want to make X number of dollars. When I ask why, rarely can they answer that question. So you say that you want this, but you can't define what that means to you, why it's important to you. And if you can't define that, you're probably not going to go through what it takes to get to that level, because it really has no meaning to you. It's just an arbitrary, and it's one of the things I'm very careful of when it comes to vision boards. I love vision boards, by the way, but I also like to pick them apart, meaning that is that because what I tend to see on most vision boards is I see fancy cars, I see boats, I see dollars, I see big houses, and when I ask the deeper question, they can't respond to it.
They crumble.
Yeah.
No, I feel that. Yeah, I feel that. And, it comes down also then to realizing that, the source of your passion is, again, just always your interest and your motivation. And sometimes, quite honestly, people have an interest in something, but they don't have that motivation. And if you have that motivation, you have that interest, you'll see that interest probably will not go away for the rest of your life, But like, if you're a person like me, when I was younger, like I wanted to be Santa Claus. In Singapore, the cabs are so nice. They're so pristine that I wanted to be a cab driver. I loved how, the air conditioning in those Singaporean taxis are so good that I'm like, I could sit in this car forever. I just want to be a cab driver, right? But, all of these interests, I had those interests in mind. I was curious about it, but I didn't have the motivation to follow up and continuously do work on it. And that's when if you truly have something that's an interest or a passion. Passion is not just simply something that people will say, like, you're interested in it. It's more complex than that.
Yeah, it's got to, and I think that it doesn't come from here. It comes from down in here. It comes from your gut. You have quite a few different businesses, and this is what fascinates me about, I'm having a conversation with a 19-year-old that doesn't claim to be an entrepreneur, but they actually have businesses. So I'm going to ask you some questions about leadership, and this is one that, do you have, whether it's employees, partners, whatever, do you believe that you can motivate somebody? Like, can you motivate somebody to want more, do more, or do you believe that they have to be motivated?
It's a good question. Honestly, from my experience, I think I can motivate people. And the reason why is I think I can bring clarity to their lives. I think I can make them realize that they want something that they previously never thought they wanted. Or I can make them realize that there's something more important in life than what they previously thought was the most important thing. And here's the number one reason why. When I started a nonprofit, money was out of the equation. The people I worked with largely just wanted to make an impact, right? Just like most millennials want to do. They want to have an impact. They want to make an impact in the world. They want to affect people. But nobody understood what that word impact means, right? A lot of millennials, a lot of youth will say, I want to make an impact, but no one knows what the hell they're talking about. And I help them clarify exactly what that meant. Does it mean getting on calls with people, hearing their problems and talking to them and trying to provide this program to them? Does it mean going and speaking to schools and trying as much as possible to roll out the program to the youngest adolescent kids and being able to get them to realize that their life is starting already and they can make something off it, right? Impact needs to be classified and needs to be clarified. And that's, I think, the biggest thing I was able to do as a leader within my businesses is help clarify other people's notions and other people's aspirations.
Wow. You just, you're right. It just hit me when you said that, because I hear that a lot too. I can go on Instagram and see so many people I want to impact. But what does that actually mean? Like, what does that mean? Because it's going to have a different meaning for every person.
Every person. You're right.
So what is, when it comes to Swish, like, what does that mean to you? Like, what does that, Like, what is your definition of that?
Yeah. So I think there's two things. I've thought this out a lot. The first is being the best version of myself. Every single, part of my life, I want to make it as perfect as possible. When it comes to my personal life, when it comes to my professional life, when it comes to the way that I carry myself, I want it to be in the way that's natural, that's authentic, that's real, and that's personable, because that's who I am, I feel. And the second thing when it comes to impact is helping people who are largely disadvantaged. You'll hear a lot of people say this, and a lot of people hide behind financial motives to be able to get ahead by saying that they want to support the marginalized, they want to support the people who are disadvantaged. But, honestly, for me, I've largely put a lot of money, I think, off the table when it comes to not charging nonprofits for speaking. I easily could have done that. I know a lot of friends who do that. They charge a ton. I don't do that. I don't charge any money when I go to speak at schools. And it's not because I'm a saint. It's not because look at me, I'm so great, haha, swish. But it's honestly because I think deep down I realize that, there's some things far beyond money that make a bigger impact to your life, right?
Holy crap.
And I think it's so beautiful when you can speak, when you can give an interview and you get someone on Facebook message you, or you get someone after come up and say that yo, that changed my life. That really helped me out. That really motivated me to go out and do something. And sure, sometimes they exaggerate because they're trying to talk to you. But a lot of times I've seen, I've just been able to help people realize something that they didn't know before. And that feeling, I don't know why, I don't know, call me selfish if you want, that feeling is something I'm addicted to.
Yeah.
And I want to continuously get it.
Yeah, dude, it's wow. I literally had this conversation with someone today about I may leave money on the table because it's not about the money in certain things. It's in a way, maybe it is selfish of me that I want to feel good by helping somebody.
Yeah.
But it's not always the quickest path to financial wealth to give freely of yourself. But damn, I feel good when I do it. There's no amount of money that can replace that feeling. For me.
Yeah.
Now I like money, but I mean, I'm not Mother Teresa. I do like to make money, but money's not my driving factor. It comes secondary. It comes behind it. The driving factor is, and for me, when it comes to impact, it can be something big and extravagant, or it can be something like I made somebody smile. I just want people to think that, like, a win for me from this podcast, it's not viewers, it's not connections. It's like if Swish walks away and he was like, you know what? I feel better. I don't know why. I just feel like, dude, that there's no greater compliment than that for me. And guys, I'm gonna give people a hard time, whoever's watching right now, because we on this path of sometimes you're given opportunities and you can ask people questions, you can put yourself out there. So if anyone's watching, here's an opportunity you have one-on-one with Swish, and you can ask him anything. Take advantage of it. I mean, I don't know how much more to say about that. We get opportunities in life, take advantage of them. So please, anyone, I know it's going to be uncomfortable. You may not have the best question or the best verbiage, but you might build a relationship with somebody and make a connection that can change your world. And that's, I'm sure that you Swish you can look back on events, and you can probably look back on people and be like, wow, that person may have in that moment opened up so many different doors.
Yeah. Honestly, I totally agree. I actually, on my phone, weirdly enough, got 3 missed calls. So I don't know if people are calling my cell phone or something, like call the Zoom link. But no, I love what you said there. And just while we're waiting, I mean, one of the things I want to quickly clarify is, that's why when I looked at entrepreneurship, when I came into the field, if you will, I saw past the bullshit. There are 2 bullshit in the world, right? There's one spectrum at the side where it's the people who are like, I only care about other people. I only care about helping other people. And I largely call BS on that. You also want to make a bit for yourself. You have self-interest as well, and you want to do things for yourself. And then it's B, the people who are super money oriented, that don't care as much how to make money. They just want to quickly claim that they're making an impact and try to get by in life through that, right? And that's why I like to follow in that middle, where I'm very reasonable, right? Where you're reasonable about what you want. You're reasonable that you need money to live. You'd like a bit more. It's a great goal to be able to set for yourself. But why not get to the top by not stomping on other people, but helping them elevate themselves as well?
Yeah,
That's the difference.
And to me, I think that's like some of the greatest leaders that are out there are those that can bring other people up, not keep them down.
Yeah.
And I think one of the challenges that, and this is my perception of millennials and Generation Z when it comes to corporate America, I think there's a perception in the corporate America side that it's about greed, excess, keeping people down, profits, and not necessarily do the right thing, which is also why I think we're seeing a lot of companies today that are going more into how do we give back? How do we become more socially responsible?
Yeah. But some of that is fake, like it's so not authentic, like when United Airlines had that huge scandal, like, well, I bet you all the other companies were peeing their pants like shit, like we got to do things for people. But I don't understand, because for me, when I view business, I see it not as numbers, but people, like this thing actually works. When you elevate someone else, not only do empirically sometimes they owe you a favor that you could leverage later on if you want to go to like the most empirically true fact when you elevate someone else up. But many times when you elevate someone else up, they become a fan, they become a follower, they become someone who is going to support you no matter what. And you never know when you might need that person to be able to give you a good recommendation on the phone for a job, right? Or to be able to go and help you buy your book or share your content, right? It empirically works. And I think people, they skate by life either believing that they're here for a reason and money is not a factor in their life, and sometimes they're lying to themselves, or they skate by life and they want money, but they're just bullshitting to people that they care about people.
Man, I feel like I could talk to you like literally for like days. It's just so weird. Even though we're years apart as far as age, it just and the more that I do that, this is the coolest thing about not just this podcast, but if you're truly authentic, like you can meet so many cool people that are literally telling your story. It's almost like some of the things that you're saying, I'm like, yeah, I feel that way. Like I feel you. Like it's like we're brothers. And I love that. But I also am cognizant of your time. So I'm going to give the people a final warning. We have like 10 minutes left. So you have a 10-minute window because Manu has been, and I go back and forth, Manu and Swish, I apologize. Swish has been very generous this time. But I do have a couple more questions for you, Swish.
Cool.
And we're going to get to the big one that I ask of everybody. And once again, this is just, it's because you're 20 years old now. But you speak wise beyond your years. There are so many people that are listening because we hear this question over and over again. How do I find my why, my purpose? And I think you touched on this earlier. So, but what advice could you give to somebody? Can you really help someone find their why? Like go do this. Like what is the action plan for someone to go find their why?
Yeah. I think there's 3 things to keep in mind. One is don't rush it. This is a big question in life, and the one thing I like about any form of real success is that it takes time. Because if it didn't, it wouldn't technically feel good, like you don't feel good about opening a drawer because you can do it so easily, but like you're going to feel good when you're able to answer that question and go through it in a super authentic way and in a way where you were truly able to look back at your life. The second thing is, as much as possible, to immerse yourself in as much, to do something. You were bang on, you were right about this. People are watching one more Tony Robbins video, or they're watching a Gary Vaynerchuk video. And, Gary even talks about this, right? He doesn't want people to watch him. He wants people to stop watching him and go do things, right? And I love that. Sure, maybe he's lying about it. I don't know. Who knows? But like, I believe him, and I think it's true that if you really want things to work for you, you have to work. That's so true in my life. Final thing, honestly, is, just realize that you're not alone. Though you might not have a mentor, sometimes you might not even have many friends. This thing that is called social media has allowed us to message anyone, has allowed us to get in contact with them, learn their story, help them, understand who they are, and get help from them. And if you use that to your benefit, but more importantly, to other people's benefit, you'll see success.
I love that. Like, love, because, and I do believe that Gary Vee, he's telling us what to do. Like, he's telling you how the game is played, and he's watching the ones that are actually doing it.
Yeah.
But there are so many, there's so many that listen, but don't hear. Like, they're really not, like, it is a game, and he's telling you how the game is played, but he's not going to play it for you. You have to go out there and do something, take action. And I think that's the part about entrepreneurship that so few people, it does look sexy when Gary Vee has put out so much content. But just from what I've experienced since we started this podcast, the amount of work that goes into this, it's not easy. Like, it's just, I can't imagine what Gary goes through. The number of responses and requests and emails, and I just couldn't fathom that, because I know what I'm getting.
Mm-hmm.
Take the time to try and get back to every single person.
Every single person. Yep.
And maybe it doesn't happen like instantaneous. Maybe I do need a nudge. Maybe you have to hit me up again. But I'm also watching. I'm watching the people that are going and, okay, so this person really wants an opportunity because they're being persistent, which is what you said earlier. You were persistent, and that's how you got to Gary Vee. And there's so few people that are willing to do that. Oh, I don't want to be a pest. I don't want to, like, no, if you're passionate about it, go for it, man.
Yeah. Because, the worst case scenario is you are a pest and you got called out for it. But then, like, okay, great. You weren't like worse off than you started off at, right? And that's the best thing. That's the best thing about rock bottom. There's only up, there's really only up to go. So, this is all stuff, man. Like, and the reason why I'm so frustrated sometimes when I say things like this is, A, because people view it sometimes as cliche and don't act on it. And then B, it's because people feel like they've heard it so many times and they're doing it, but they're not. And it frustrates me, really. Like, it honestly frustrates me, just because, like, for me, it's so simple. And it's hard to tell people to understand it, because it's the fact that A, they might come from a different, mentality, education, whatever. They might come from a different place altogether. But B, I think a lot of times people literally need a bit more time to realize what they want in life. So before they're being told to go out and get it and seize it, they have to do a bit of research, not on their industry, but themselves. And that's sometimes what I would definitely suggest to people who are having, very little results when it comes to reaching out to people and trying to put themselves out there, is try to understand more about who you are, what your talents are, because people will follow talented people. People will give money to people who have mastered their craft. It is empirically true. It is how the world works. So there's no reason for you not to be able to go and make yourself more skilled. You don't have to go to school for that anymore. You have videos, you have books, you have people around you that you can talk to make yourself more qualified, and more importantly, to make yourself better.
Wow. Your wisdom is really, really uncanny. And I keep saying that because, and it sounds weird, but it's very refreshing to hear someone talk, but come from a level of understanding and a really, really deep self-awareness. Anyone that's, man, Swish. Gosh, I will get the swish.
Swish.
Anyone that's watching this, how can they help you? How can anybody that watches this, how can they help Swish out?
Yeah, they can reach out. They can tell me more about themselves. Honestly, that's the biggest thing. I have no agenda. I have no desire that I want people who I don't even know in the first place to help me out with. The biggest thing you can help me out with is by reaching out with me. I am super active on LinkedIn right now. I'm very active on Facebook as well. Just reach out and say hi and tell me a bit about yourself. And maybe, I say hi back and done, conversation, right? Like we weren't able to find a way to help each other out. Can't force it. But maybe there is a way that we can help each other out and truly be able to, make ourselves better that way.
Is the best way to connect with you on LinkedIn, Swish? Like if you,
LinkedIn or Twitter, Twitter, I'm always definitely going to respond. So if you just me at Go Swish, funny story about this, by the way, it's not because I'm a narcissist that put Go Swish. It's because my last name combined with my nickname is Go Swish, but I only realized that after I saved the name, and I'm like, damn it. So yeah, Go Swish, GOSWISH. Tweet me. You can also Instagram DM me. And that's literally the best way. But just reach out, say hi, tell me who you are, because that's what I want to know.
Swish, I'm really, really thankful for you freely giving of your time. The checks in the mail. No, you don't get paid for this.
Really? No, I'm kidding.
You're freely giving of your time, and I appreciate you so much for that. I appreciate everybody that's out there watching. And once again, I mean, the reason that this is so important to me is because I truly believe that by connecting with enough different people together, we can, once again, another cliche or acronym, together everyone achieves more. And I believe that the more people that we can connect, learn from, and build a community, the further we can all get on our journey towards fulfillment, whatever that means.
Yeah. So, and I mean, yeah, thank you for having me, really. I can't state enough, but there are not too many people who are as, well accomplished as you are, who are willing to give young kids like me a shot, and being able to show our voices and give us that limelight and exposure. So I really, really appreciate it.
No, I love it. I mean, now I feel weird. I'm like, I'm gonna come back. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I know, and like I said before, I can learn from everybody. And it is amazing what I have learned from people like yourself and even younger. Like you all, when I say you all, I mean this millennials, Generation Z, have just opened my eyes to so many different things. And I'm eternally grateful for that, because I wouldn't know what a podcast was if it wasn't for you all. I mean, this would never have come across my mind. This was Jeff's idea, not John's idea. I just like to talk. Like you said, people like to talk. I like to talk. So, no, thank you. And thank everybody that's watching this, because, you're just, or if you're listening to it on iTunes, you're just as important. Now I have the big question. So we talked about the journey towards fulfillment. Which is a hard question. I got asked this question last week, and I'm like, wow, this is a tough question to answer. So what does that mean to you, Swish?
Mm-hmm. Fulfillment?
Fulfillment.
Honestly, the best part about this answer is I actually have not been able to do it yet, but I hope I will, which is fulfillment in my mind is at the end of my life, I'll look back and I'll realize that every step I made was intentional. Every single person I met was beneficial, and every single step I took was something that I could be proud of. So that's what living a fulfilled life for me is. And I hope that when I'm able to, to die at let's just say 90 for now. Who knows? We'll go up and down 10 or so, but like, we'll see. But hopefully when I look back, I'll realize that I did everything I could to be able to tap into this dream of mine. And by dream, I mean dreams. It's not just one thing for me, but hopefully I'll be able to realize that every step, every person, every single meeting I took led to something in the end.
Wow, that's amazing. Swish, you've been awesome, man. Like I said, I wish we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this again because I think it's amazing to watch someone and watch the process, watch their journey. So we're definitely gonna have you back and check in and say, okay, what's Swish up to now?
I would love that
because this has been amazing, and I appreciate you once again. And we'll stay in touch, bud.
Awesome.
I love this. All right, guys. This has been episode number 11 of Welcome to the Machine. Thank you for watching. Check us out on iTunes, and we will see you all next week. Peace out, Swish.
Peace out.